Our mother was beginning to become verbally abusive to my brother and I.
You kids are such leeches. Can't you do anything for yourselves? Why must you be complete idiots?
Mom, stop it. Why are you being so mean?
Because I never wanted to have you crotch goblins.
Sadly, when she drank, she was only worse, and she began drinking more often as well. Our father would regularly catch her hitting one of us and would threaten to call the police on her if she wouldn't stop.
That's enough. If you don't stop, I swear I'll call the police and have them haul you away.
You spineless idiot. You won't dare call the police on your wife.
The hell I won't. You just try me.
You know that they say that blood is thicker than water, but I have come to learn that the closest and best family is the one that you make. I think that once you hear my story, that you will agree though. It all began when I was 12 and my younger brother Tim was 10. Our parents were constantly bickering, and to make matters worse, our mother was beginning to become verbally abusive to my brother and I.
You kids are such leeches. Can't you do anything for yourselves? Why must you be complete idiots?
Mom, stop it. Why are you being so mean?
Because I never wanted to have you crotch goblins.
Sadly, when she drank, she was only worse, and she began drinking more often as well. Our father would regularly catch her hitting one of us and would threaten to call the police on her if she wouldn't stop.
That's enough. If you don't stop, I swear I'll call the police and have them haul you away.
You spineless idiot. You won't dare call the police on your wife.
The hell I won't. You just try me.
Thankfully, our father didn't have to find out if his threat would work, as one day we all woke up and our mother was gone. She had snuck around the house in the middle of the night and took everything of value and had disappeared. As if that wasn't bad enough, she even emptied the joint bank account that she shared with our father. There had been tens of thousands of dollars in that account, and she took and ran off somewhere. The days after were very hard on our father. On the one hand, he was relieved as our mother had been a terror not only to me and my brother, but to our father as well. While she was abusive to us, she was doubly so towards him, and he had the bruises and cuts to prove as much. Our father had to take out a large loan from the bank in order to help us get through the first few months after our mother left. He even received divorce papers in the mail from her at one point, solidifying the fact that she had no intentions of ever coming back home. Even though she was gone, the bills kept coming, in order to pay back the loan and to keep us afloat. Our grandmother moved in with us, and my brother and I couldn't have been happier. While our father would work as much overtime as he could, our grandmother would spend time with us. She would bake for us all the time and was extremely supportive of us. She would constantly tell us how much she loved us and how proud of our grades she was. It was the exact opposite of what living with our mother was like. For the next few years, our grandmother kept us company when our father was at work. We could tell that he was beginning to burn out, although he had nearly paid off the loan that he had taken out and had even saved up a sizable amount of money as well, but he still worked a ton of overtime and rarely had a day off. He was determined to make sure that he would be able to pay for school for my brother and I once we graduated from high school. However, one day, our grandmother became ill, and within a few weeks, she passed away. It was so incredibly painful to lose her. Aside from our father, she was the only real positive influence that we had had in our lives, and losing her was almost too painful to bear. As a result, our father took less and less overtime, but by that point, he had managed to become debt-free and had saved up more than enough to cover our schooling. He began to spend more time with us, and even had more free time for himself as well. It was a difficult year after our grandmother passed away, but we needed to keep on living, and we knew that she wouldn't want us to cry forever. One day, our father came home and told us that he had an announcement.
Hey guys, I don't know how you're going to feel about this, but I met someone and I would really like for you to meet her. Her name is Camila, and she is very important to me.
That's wonderful, Dad. If you really care about her, then we will too. Soon after that, we were introduced to Camila and we hit it off immediately. There was just something about her that struck a chord with us. She was so nurturing and friendly and genuinely seemed eager to learn all about us. Both my brother and I could find no fault with her and were genuinely happy when our father announced that he would be marrying Camila. They had a simple ceremony, and after that, Camila moved in with us. However, at that time, I was getting ready to head off to school. I had been accepted into an architectural school and had even lined up a firm that had agreed to hire me on after I graduated. Things were beginning to look up. A couple years later, my brother was accepted into medical school and was planning on becoming a surgeon. Camila and our father constantly would call us and tell us how proud they were of us, and going home on weekends was such a delight. Camila would go all out and bake tons of delicious desserts for us, and make sure to cook our favorite meals as well. Going back to school was hard sometimes since home life was just as good as when our grandmother was around, if not even better since our father was around more too. Once I graduated, the firm that had promised me a job kept their word and assigned me to some simpler jobs. I worked under a few senior architects and learned a lot about designing fascinating, but also practical buildings, and it wasn't long before I proved myself worthy of bigger projects, one of which made it onto the local news since I had added a lot of really interesting artistic flares to the building. People loved the design, and it had become the talk of the town. Things just seemed like they were really going well for us, but then tragedy found a way to weasel its way back into our lives. Our father had a heart attack and needed to have open heart surgery. My brother was kicking himself for not being able to do the surgery himself, but we all told him that even if he had graduated by that time, that it was better off that he didn't, as there was no telling if our father would make it through the surgery. And sadly, he passed away during the operation. All those years of working so much overtime had taken their toll on him, and he passed away much too young. In his will, he left everything to Camila, and both my brother and I were okay with that decision. After all, we were doing quite well on our own and didn't really need the money, but Camila insisted on sharing it with us. It just further proved how good of a person she was and how much she truly cared for my brother and I. She had become our true mother, and we had pretty much forgotten our birth mother when suddenly I got a phone call from her.
Hey there, brat. Listen, I heard that your father finally passed away, and I just wanted to check in and see if there was any way you could share some of your inheritance with your dear old mother.
You can't be serious. You've ghosted us all these years, and when you had been around, you were terrible to us. Why would we give you anything at all?
Because I'm your mother. You owe me for giving birth to you.
I would never give you a single dime. You can rot in hell for all I care. I had thought that that would be the end of it, but a few days later I got a call from Camila saying that a strange woman was at her house threatening to break in. I instantly knew who it was that was harassing my stepmother, and I rushed over terrified about what my birth mother might do. When I arrived, I saw my birth mother pounding her fists on the front door of Camila's house. I have no idea how she figured out where my father and Camila had lived, but she did and was now demanding that Camila come out and give her dead husband's money.
Get out here, you whore. I won't let you steal that money from me. It's rightfully mine.
What are you doing? Have you gone completely insane?
Stay out of this. This is between me and the homewrecker inside.
Homewrecker? You divorced my father and stole all of his money years before he met Camila. What are you talking about? Just then, my mother's eyes went red and she slapped me so hard that I fell to the ground. She then stood over me and was about to start kicking me when the door behind her opened and Camila came out. I had never seen Camila angry before, but she was furious at my mother for having struck me. She rushed over and picked my mother up overhead and threw her to the ground. I have no idea how she had that much strength in her, but every time my mother tried to get up and rush at Camila, she would grapple her again and throw her down. By the fifth time, my mother was winded and unable to get back up. It was then that I called the police and had then dragged my mother away. In the weeks that followed, we had the courts put a restraining order against my mother that made it so that if she came within 100 feet of either my brother or I or Camila, that she would be arrested and put in prison. Thankfully, we didn't have to enforce it though, as not long after the police dragged her away, my brother heard from one of his colleagues at the hospital that our mother had been admitted. She was dying from liver failure and had needed the money to pay for a surgery that could have saved her life. Sadly, it was too late by then, and not long after she was admitted, she ended up dying a very painful and lonely death in the hospital. I wish I could say that had she asked for the money in order to have surgery that either my brother or I would have helped her, but honestly, I don't think that we would have. She had been so rotten and abusive to us, and we truly didn't want anything to do with her. The years when she was gone and out of our lives were the best we could have had, and when she came back into our lives, all she brought was anger and violence. To be honest, she wasn't my mother. She was only the woman that gave birth to me. Camila, however, is my true mother, as she didn't hesitate at all to come to my defense, and unlike my birth mother, Camila actually showed me love. So some people can say that blood is thicker than water, but I respectfully disagree. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.
You don't have to keep lying. I'm going to leave you out here to starve to death. It will be slow and painful, and once I know you are dead, I will bury you out here, and no one will ever know what happened to you.
And with that, she left me tied up in the cabin. Hi there, my name is Cassandra, and I have had to go through quite the ordeal. I had been married to my husband Eric for several years. We were introduced to each other through mutual friends, and we instantly fell in love with each other. Things were going really well, and it wasn't long until we started dating and eventually got engaged. We were very happy, but both of us knew that we wanted to wait until we were both properly established in our careers before marriage. He was in school to become an engineer while I was in business school, and spent a lot of time studying the stock market. Soon after we both graduated, Eric was able to find a job with a very large firm. His starting salary was very impressive, but we chose to keep renting the same small apartment so that we could save up and buy a house when we were truly ready. Sadly, I wasn't so lucky though, but I was determined to help out as much as I could, and so I got a job at a restaurant as a server to help with the bills. Around that time, Eric wanted us to introduce each other to our parents. He figured it was way past time for us to do so, and I completely agreed. Although, after I met his parents, I was rather sure that we had made a terrible mistake.
Mom and Dad, this is Cassandra, my fiancée. Hello there, Cassandra. It's nice to meet you.
Yes, and it's very nice to meet you as well.
So tell me, Cassandra, where do you work?
Well, right now I'm just working at a restaurant, but I have plans to do something much more interesting soon.
Really? Eric, is this really the woman that you want to marry? Some sleazy waitress?
Mom, Cassandra isn't a sleazy waitress. For your information, she graduated from business school. She's only working as a waitress because she wants to contribute to our bills. With my new job, she could just stay home and do nothing, but that isn't the kind of person that she is.
She certainly doesn't sound very impressive to me. She sounds like a freeloader.
The rest of the night was much of the same, and by the time that we went home, I hated my future mother-in-law. Eric promised me that her words didn't matter to him, and that he knew that I was going to do great things with my life, and even if I didn't, that he would still love me. His father had been very warm, though, and that did make the whole encounter much more bearable at least. After a few months, though, I was growing tired of how Eric's mother was treating me. She would call him every other day and bad-mouth me to him. She would tell him that I was going to steal all of his money and that he needed to leave me as soon as possible, or else I would leave him broke, penniless, and depressed. It got so bad that he started letting her calls go to voicemail just so that he wouldn't have to listen to her. I was so sick of her constant abuse. It made me feel like such a complete loser. And so I asked Eric if it would be okay if I took some of the money I made from waitressing and invested it into the stock market. He told me that he completely supported me doing so. So after a couple weeks of analyzing several dozen companies, I picked 3 that had potential and invested my entire paycheck in them. 1 week later, I had more than doubled my initial investment, and I then took that money and reinvested it into several companies that I liked, and sure enough, the next week I had quadrupled my investment. I began picking more companies and holding them for varying amounts of time. Some I lost money on, but the majority of them earned me quite a bit of money. Before long, I had made more investing in the stock market than Eric had made in the last 2 years. We were so excited, and Eric was incredibly proud of me.
Honey, I knew that you would do well. But I never dreamed that you would do this well so quickly. We have more than enough to buy whatever home that we want.
Thank you, Eric. I couldn't have done it without your support, though.
Nope, it was all you. You're just a wizard at playing the stock market. It's almost like you're psychic or something. We should call my parents and rub your success in my mother's face.
No, please don't do that. She'll just find a different reason to pick on me. Honestly, your mom just hates me. It is what it is. It felt terrible admitting that I would never be liked by my future mother-in-law, but I couldn't avoid it. She just refused to ever see me as a good match for her son. The one thing that I did request was that we pick a date and make plans for a wedding. With my investing skills, I earned enough money to completely cover the cost of the wedding, while still putting money aside for our future house as well. At the wedding, Eric's mother stared daggers at me the entire time and refused to say anything to me. Few months after our wedding, we bought our dream home and moved into it. It was such an amazing house, and it was close to Eric's job. I had an office built inside the library of the home, and I kept investing. We would eventually need more money to cover the costs of the children that we would have, as well as their schooling. Between the money I earned and Eric's salary, we were living quite comfortably. That is, until tragedy struck. I would never have guessed that I would become a widow at the age of 31. But sure enough, Eric was driving home from work one day, and a drunk driver got into a head-on collision with him. The accident was so terrible that both men died instantly. I was so furious. Not only had this stranger killed my husband, but he died, which meant that he wouldn't face any judgment for his crime. It was so infuriating. What made matters worse is that no sooner had my husband was buried and gone, did my mother-in-law begin coming around. At first, I thought maybe tragedy had made her see the light, and that she was coming around to make sure that I was okay. But of course, that wasn't the case. She will always come around and bully me, saying she wants all her son's property. Then one day she came.
Well, congratulations. Looks like you got what you wanted. My son is dead and you inherited everything, including this house that he paid for. I guess it must feel really good to be a freeloader and never have to work hard for anything.
Oh, will you shove it up your ass? I earned the money that paid for this house. My husband made good money, but it was my skills that paid for this house.
I don't believe you. You're lying and I'll make you regret it.
Before I even knew what was going on, she rushed towards me and put a cloth up to my face. The second that I began to feel loopy, I knew that she had doused the cloth with chloroform. I couldn't stay awake, and I fell asleep. When I woke up, I was tied up in the back of a moving car. Eventually, I felt the car stop, and Eric's mother opened the trunk and dragged me out of it and into what looked like an abandoned cabin.
There. Now I'll leave you here to rot while I head back and reclaim my son's house. I always knew that you were useless. I'm only sorry that my son never saw it and died before he could move on and find someone worthy of how amazing he was.
Enough. Your son loved me, and I was a great wife to him. I was never a freeloader. In fact, I made more money than him, and I not only paid completely for our wedding, but also for our house too. He made good money, but I was the breadwinner. Why can't you just accept that I loved your son, and he loved me?
You don't have to keep lying. I'm going to leave you out here to starve to death. It will be slow and painful, and once I know you are dead, I will bury you out here, and no one will ever know what happened to you.
And with that, she left me tied up in the cabin. For 2 solid days, I struggled to free myself from my bonds, and every time I heard any noises outside, I would scream and hope that it was a hiker or a hunter. By the time that the 3rd day rolled around, I was losing hope and I began to cry when I heard a car pull up outside. I instantly began to scream, and seconds later, Eric's father burst into the cabin and untied me. As it turned out, his wife had told him that I had run off with all of Eric's money since he was dead. He had found it rather odd that I would leave after the funeral if that had been my intentions, but also that I wouldn't sell the house but leave it behind. He instantly knew that something weird was going on, and he began to look for me. At first, he checked in with all my friends and family, but then he decided on a hunch to check his wife's old family cabin, and that was when he found me. I thanked him so much, and the 2 of us drove back to my home where we found my mother-in-law giving a statement to the police. She was filing for a missing persons report and claiming that I had skipped town. As soon as I saw her, I attacked her and dug my nails into her face. She screamed out in pain and fear, and it took 2 police officers to pull me off of her in spite of the fact that I was weak from days without food or water. Once they pulled me off, I told the police what she had done, which of course she denied. But then my father-in-law stepped up and told them that it was all true. After they heard his statement, they immediately arrested her and dragged her away. The next couple of weeks were a bit of a blur as it took me a while to recover from the ordeal. Between the days without food and having only lost my husband a short time before that, I was a mess. However, in spite of that, my mother-in-law was sentenced to 20 years in prison. As if that wasn't enough, her husband divorced her and told her that she had disgraced their son's memory by behaving like a crazy person. From what I hear, she gets into fights regularly in prison and is hated. If she manages to survive for the next 20 years in prison, I would be surprised. As for my father-in-law, Well, he was pretty broken up about what had happened, but he did eventually recover, and I put my skills to good use and helped him out by tripling the amount of money he had in his retirement fund, helping him ensure that he would have whatever money he would ever need to stay happy, healthy, and comfortable. It was the least I could do. After all, he did save my life. And me? Well, it's taken me some time to process everything that happened, but I think I'm ready to get out there and start dating again. I don't know if I'll find anyone as amazing as my husband, but I know that he wouldn't want me to be alone. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment.